This episode is sponsored by Well Balanced Nutrition and 360 Health.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm a health geek. I'm Eleanor, and that was Tim and I heard you, Tim.
Haha, hear me.
And
It's
with
me,
us,
Kristen.
right? And today we've got Carolyn Bennett Sullivan with us, who's going to join our conversations. We have another health geek. This is so fun.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you're a co-owner of a activity-based business, aren't you? Soft Golf.
Yes, I am.
You want to tell us a little bit about Soft Golf? Quick,
Sure,
2 seconds.
briefly. Full swing golf with big balls, big clubs, big holes that
Big
light up
fun.
at night and glow in the dark, making it user-friendly, fun golf.
Right, and it's a one-of-a-kind sport that hopes to become infectious. And we are going to be talking about a book that we found. And Kristen, where did we find this book called Infectious Generosity?
I think we found it on one of the top sellers list.
How about that?
Mm-hmm.
So nobody referred this one to us, did they?
Nope. And, we like to talk about a variety of topics within all the wellness wheels.
And it's a 2024 hot book off the press.
Yes.
Hey, if you're as interested in prevention as I am, contact me, Eleanor Russell, at 360health, 4u.com. Whether you're interested in financial wellness or physical health products, 360 Health invites you to become part of our community.
So this one, we thought we haven't talked about generosity before.
Right. And so to kind of kick that off, in this book by Chris Anderson, who is the head of TED, which is Technology, Education, and Design Talks, TED, he says, we're odd things, we humans. The prospective happiness that shouts loudest doesn't deliver. The version that whispers oh so softly can last a lifetime. And I think he's referring to the Chinese proverb that goes like this. If you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. For a day, go fishing. For a month, get married. For a year, inherit a fortune. For a lifetime, help someone else. And so I think we're going to dig into what Chris Anderson is talking about. How do we help someone else? And what's all the intricacies of that conversation? So do you have Carolyn and Kristen, I wanted to know if you had a general impression of the book, because I did. Just a kind of a reaction.
So infectious generosity, the ultimate idea worth spreading, to me was definitely different than other books we've read. It's far from science-y, Eleanor, sorry.
I'll talk about that.
Yeah. So, I found that easy to read. Lots of stories, which I like reading about stories and examples. So I was inspired. I liked it. The first 2/3 I liked better than the last. I'll say that.
Right.
Okay. I found the book to be really inspiring. TED's theme is ideas worth sharing. And for me, this book really brought ideas to me and inspired me as to ways that not only how can I be more generous, but as communities, how can we be more generous and create infectious generosity. I love the stories. Some of the aha moments I had were really incredible. And for me, it's how do I start looking at my life and incorporating some of these ideas to spread generosity. It may not be to millions of people, but you never know what that domino effect could potentially be.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me be the counter argument here.
Right.
As a health geek, I like reading books that I can sort of say I really strongly see the connection to health. And this is a topic area that has been alluded to in several of the other books we have read, and we'll bring those up as we get to them. But as far as hard evidence and wiring and all this kind of stuff, and I wanted more of that, and I didn't get it. I just got these superficial references to selfless genes. Okay, where are they? What are they? I want to know. Tell me where. And then I found it generally a very provocative book, a very disturbing book. And then I kind of thought, well, I wonder why I'm having these sort of negative reactions. And is it like because I totally disagree, or is it because I'm challenged? Or I'm really, sometimes when you're uncomfortable, there's something you need to confront in yourself. So, this book was a provocative read for me, and I did have reactions going through it. So I'm really looking forward to what we discuss, and maybe you're going to change my mind. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it. I do recommend reading it because I think he's speaking from his heart, and he has an idea worth sharing, and it needs to be discussed. And that's one of the things that TED is great about. Now, when did you guys first find out about TED? Because as I say that's TED, and we're referring to a series of talks that have been around since 1996. But a lot of people still don't know about TED. So as we flip that word out, because we're familiar with it, our audience may not know what we're talking about. So when did you first encounter TED?
I don't have a date, but I feel like it's 5 to 10 years I've known about it. That makes sense?
I would say it was probably somewhere around 2013, 2014.
Do you remember the talk that you heard first or not?
No,
Okay.
I don't. But I
You've listened to several.
I remember being told about it, and then in Delaware at that time, there were, I think it was the Museum of Art that was actually showing the national TED. And then they started bringing, TEDx to the local communities.
Well, my first encounter was in about 2001, and it had just converted from the private TED to the free edition. And I was working at the School of Medicine, and the city of Winston-Salem was having an idea exchange. And Carol Strohecker had been hired by some hoo-haws around here to coordinate what are we going to do. And she invited us all to the top of the Wachovia building over here. And we sat down and listened to Sir Kenneth Robinson talk about how schools are killing creativity. And a lot of us were educators in the group, and I was like mesmerized. It was a stunning talk. And they only are about 18 to 20 minutes long, which is another nice feature because our attention span's kind of short. But since then, I've listened to several other ones, and they're fascinating, and they're a broad variety of topics. So those of you out there, if you don't know about TED, check them out. They're available on YouTube, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
To my knowledge, I have never seen nor heard a TED Talk.
Oh, we have fun with you then.
Wow. How?
I have the attention span of a gnat. So,
Well, the cool thing about TED Talks is that, they started at this conference, and, the technology, education, design were typically different conferences. But this was a unique thing. They combined them all. And so someone who was in technology had to share an idea, but at a level that someone outside of that field would understand and be inspired by. So all of these TED Talks are meant to capture your attention, to share something in like a simple and down-to-earth fashion. And so I really want you to go watch a TED Talk after this and see if you can pay attention, because I bet you could.
And I'll recommend a couple.
Yeah.
Richard Worthman was an architect and a graphic designer, and Harry Marks was a American television producer. He did Mad Dogs and The Englishman, and those two guys started this conference, and they were charging $5,000 to $6,000 a ticket. And so after I saw this thing, I went up to Carol and I said, "Carol, these are great. We need to go to these." And she said, "You can't go. It has to be by invitation." And I went, "Oh." But at that time, it had just converted, because I looked back at the dates, and I said, "No, it was free at that time." But maybe she didn't. She probably paid a big ticket price to get it here for us to watch. And so it was a kind of an exclusive audience for a while, and now it's not.
Right.
Anybody has access, which I think is the story we're getting ready to get into.
So, the opening of this book hopefully most of you listeners have heard of a TED Talk, listened to a couple, but if you're like me, you didn't know Chris Anderson, you didn't know how these came about. And Carolyn, you said that you thought Chris Anderson was the starter of the TED Talks.
I did. So that, reading the book, that was, news to me.
Right. So who is Chris Anderson? He is a British-American journalist turned curator who has led TED since 2001. Under his guidance, TED has transformed from this exclusive conference, to a global media platform sharing ideas we're spreading through freely accessible TED Talks. And that's kind of what inspired him ultimately to write a book about generosity, is because the story of how TED went from a conference to these talks that everybody knows about is through generosity. So I kind of want to walk listeners through what that is.
Yeah, and on that money conversation, because that's one of my provocative issues in here, is I want to know about money. Who's getting money? How's it being used? And is it really getting to what we want it to get to? So $6,000 ticket initially was to be in the presence of the stage of the speakers. Okay, and then when Chris got hold of it, he said, let's just give this away. Let's put it on the internet, and anybody can get to it. So by live streaming it or archive streaming, anyone has access to these talks. But you still can go to the conference, and you can pay a ticket price. And they're more like $150 or something like that, as I understand it. Now, Carolyn has been involved with the offshoot. Do we want to mention the offshoot yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well, yeah. In 98, when I have two different dates. Anyway, when Chris took over, it became a nonprofit. He couldn't afford, because his previous business went under. And so the way he could take it over was as a nonprofit. So as the mission was to spread the info far and wide, that's when they decided, TV didn't want to take on these boring lectures, is what they thought. So they just put 6 of them or so out on the internet. And those spread, like got people inspired, and just by word of mouth, he was like, oh, okay, well, what if we unleash all of them? And it was a conflict because, well, will people even come to this conference and pay to be there in person? And the people that paid that much, are they going to be offended that now these videos are unleashed for free? And he took the chance, and
Yeah, it was still a good deal.
It only made the conferences more popular. So that was a cool result of being generous. That was the first thing that happened. And then once these TED Talks got around, people just volunteered, like, this is so inspiring. Can I translate this into my local language? And he had that multiple times. So now these talks are in multiple languages, so it went global in that sense. And then from that, he said, well, what else can we do to be generous? They came up with a fellows program where people who couldn't afford to come to the conference or speak at the conference, maybe even, they had like a scholarship program.
Yeah, because the speakers don't get paid. They have to they have to get to the place and their housing and their food, and some people couldn't afford to do that.
Right, but they still had an idea worth spreading.
Yeah, but the fellowship supported that.
Exactly.
And that was generous.
And so one of these early fellows, and this is another positive consequence that came from the fellowship, is that TED education came from it. So one of the fellows was an educator and said, let's do these animated videos that teach both kids and adults these concepts. And now there's a ton of these TED Ed videos. I love them. I've used them because there's a couple of nutrition-related ones. So I use them with my audience. And then from there, you have TEDx. And this is where he decided to give away the brand. So you had one TED conference, but other people could use the TED name, in different cities for free, but it had to follow the rules that, you can't pay your speakers and you have to do, I don't know, whatever TED does. So you, Carolyn, were a part of a TEDx, right?
Yes, I had the privilege and honor of being a speaker on a TEDx stage. They do have to follow specific rules and guidelines to honor the brand. My experience was really phenomenal. The theme, so most TEDx talks in the local community have a theme related. So when they're looking at the speakers that apply, they want to make sure that whatever their talk is in alignment with the theme. So the theme for the TEDx that I spoke at was creating a culture of community through innovation. And that was in Wilmington, Delaware, back in 2017. And it was really interesting how varied the speakers were. So there were people in their 20s who were scientific innovators creating life-saving products, that completely blew my mind. And within that same group, though, was a gentleman who had been in a gang and murdered somebody and had spent time in jail, who then got out of jail, and his whole mission now is to prevent young men from becoming gang members.
Wow.
So the diversity.
What did you speak on?
I spoke on using curiosity as a means of innovation. And I also tied my book into that about...
Yes, Carolyn is also an author. We failed to mention that.
Right. I also tied my book into the theme of the talk.
What's the name of your book?
Get the F Out.
Okay.
And the F stands for fear. It's not what you're thinking. And so I talked about not being afraid to fail, that part of innovation and creating communities is that ability to be okay with failing and failing forward. So it was a phenomenal experience for me. And just what you learn from the other speakers is so inspiring and enlightening.
Now with the TEDx, are they allowed to charge for the conference for people to come?
I believe that they are.
Okay.
I know our organizer did.
Yeah,
I don't
think so.
know if there's a limitation, if it's basically to cover, the building where the talk is being held, and or they also sometimes will have food for the attendees and the speakers, so that
The expenses
It might
of
just
it.
cover
the
the
expenses.
expenses.
They can charge for
But
the
I'm
expenses.
sure if there's any profits involved, that there is certainly an organization that will be receiving them, because that's pretty clear from the associations he has, Chris Anderson. Back to what Kristen was saying about releasing control of your brand, that is so out of the norm of marketing.
Yes.
Everybody builds their brand. You are branded, and we go to all sorts of workshops on how to build your brand and how to keep it, and how to promote it, and blah blah blah. And here he's just giving it away. That is so radical. And so that brings up the idea of risk, because when we're generous, and we'll get, I think we'll talk more. That's one of the things keeps pulling at me is the risk assessment. So he had to say, okay, if I let go of this and these people go out there and trash the TED brand, I'm screwed. So how do I control that? What sort of oversight is there, really? I don't know. I'm not involved. But all I can say is their reputation is really strong. It's really good.
I feel like every move he made was risky, right? So putting the talks that people paid a lot of money to see online for free, and then, the fellowship, really isn't a risk. That was just a nice thing to do. And then letting other organizations take on that name so that they can get more attention.
Yeah, well, sometimes when you give a fellowship, it's not managed very well, and you get a dud. I mean, there's risk there, too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tired of feeling stuck in your health journey? At Well Balanced Nutrition, we understand that achieving your health goals isn't just about what you eat. It's about overcoming the mental roadblocks holding you back. Our team of expert nutrition coaches is here to guide you every step of the way, helping you break through mindset barriers and reach your full potential. Don't let mindset barriers stand in the way of your health and happiness. Call Well Balanced Nutrition today and start your journey to a better you. But that's how TED started and grew exponentially is what led Chris to see generosity as the ultimate idea we're spreading and writing a book about. And I thought it was really inspiring. I think TED Talks are cool. So this was just, made me appreciate TED Talks even more and then inspired me to think about how I'm living. So I looked up, but speaking of TED Talks, I looked up the top 10 most watched TED Talks. You guys want to hear what they are?
Absolutely.
And can I have that list?
Yes. Okay, number 1 is Sir Ken Robinson.
Da-da-da-da-da. Ding! That's mine.
That's yours?
It is phenomenal. This guy is hysterical and ideas worth sharing.
So his idea was do schools kill creativity?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And what are we in the middle of right now? Public education reform, right? When did he do that talk? A long time ago.
I don't have that in my notes, but yeah. Okay. So he challenges us to rethink how we educate children and reminds us that creativity is as essential as literacy. Nearly 75 million views. Okay. Number 2 is Amy Cuddy. I've seen this one. Your body language may shape who you are. She teaches that our posture affects just how others see us. See, you made it sit up tall. But how we see ourselves. And she shares a simple power pose to help shift your confidence. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
hands on the hips and then the muscle.
And I didn't know that that's where that came from.
Yeah. Number 3 is Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. You've seen that one, Eleanor? Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability. That's probably the one I've seen. Probably the first one I saw. Julian Treasure, How to Speak So That People Want to Listen.
We need to listen to that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Whoops,
I
that's
need
on
to
my
watch
list.
that one.
That's on my list.
4 simple tools to speak with honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love so our voice truly resonates. 6 is Bill Gates, The Next Outbreak, We're Not Ready. This was back in 2015.
Oh, wow. Well, that was
Prophetic.
proven true, right?
Yeah, I'd like to go back and listen to that one. Did I say top 10? I only have 7. Whoops. 7 is...
Well, that's top
pretty good,
less
right?
than 10.
Okay. And then number 7 is Tim Urban, Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think I need to listen to that one.
Can I tell you 2 of them that I've listened to?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I use these in my classroom. How Bacteria Talk. It's by Bonnie Basler, and it's talking about how we're not really human, we're bacteria. When you look at how much DNA bacteria have compared to how much DNA is in our human cells, it's phenomenal talk. And then Margaret Worthman is The Beautiful Math of Coral and Crochet. And so she talks about how all these mathematicians said you can't take a straight line and do this stuff, and she took a string and did it, And it's a fascinating talk. She and her twin sister did all these crochet. They made an aquarium, but the mathematics of the way that thread is moved and turned to get what nature does, it's a fascinating talk. So one of my favorites.
Nice. Any other favorites in the room?
I've never seen one, so I have no favorites yet.
Well, every time, now that we're doing the WELL framework, we like to leave you with something to do. And so I think what you should try out is listening to one of these TED Talks if you haven't. TED has a podcast now. You can listen in your car to a TED Talk daily. They're on YouTube.
Or check out one of the X's in a community near you.
And
We have one in High Point here in North Carolina.
Yes.
okay.
But I don't know what the next schedule is.
I don't know what that is.
TED,
Yeah,
High
bells.
Point
No,
TEDx.
the chime.
Oh, it's the energy of generosity.
The
There we
chime.
So Eleanor asked me an important question.
But before, if you're going to leave them with something else, they could buy the book and read along with us.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
Please do
and-
that.
And where would they do that?
They would go to the Health Geeks book or the Health Geeks podcast website and
Click on the bookstore.
click on the bookstore, and it's right there.
And it is an Amazon store that supports our podcast,
That's
right?
true. Yes.
Thank you.
Affiliate links.
All right. Now, what was the big question?
So we'll get to this in other podcasts, but this is just a little something. So you asked, is this really related to health and wellness?
Yes, I did ask you that.
And I like to think of these wellness conversations as little seeds of generosity. You never know when something you share will stick with someone. A simple hydration reminder, a fun veggie recipe, a story about one of our books. So I think from our podcast and what you do with your community and what I do with my community, these are seeds that can grow into real change. And
Oh, we hope so, don't we? I mean, that's what we're invested in.
yeah.
That's exciting part of it. It makes you feel good. And that feeling good is a physiological dominoes. And so I can get it back to good health.
There you go.
Yes, absolutely, Eleanor. So, while I was reading this book, I thought about that feeling that you experience when you're generous, when you've done something good for someone else because you wanted to.
Is that going to tee us up for our next episode?
It is.
That's going to be phenomenal.
All right. Well, tune in for the next one.
All right.
Views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.